Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dillan. This show is for aspiring creators who want to turn their content into a profitable business by studying the folks who are actually doing it. My guest today is Michelle Varghese. Michelle is an ex-software sales rep turned writer and podcaster. She's helped her audience quit their jobs, take very long sabbaticals. I think she secretly wants all of us to be unemployed and happy. She helps people improve their financial, spiritual, mental lives in general. And after 4 years of never missing a weekly episode, she and her sister decided to stop doing the podcast. And in this episode, Michelle and I talk about why they did that. We also talk about how to gracefully pivot away from a niche that so many people know you for, why you should always be marketing yourself way more than you are, how Michelle launched her new writing coaching business, and much more. Michelle is a friend. I love talking to her. I really loved this conversation. I think you will as well. And so without further ado, I hope you enjoy my conversation with Michelle Varghese. Ms. Michelle, you and your sister did a podcast for 4 years, and you uploaded every single week without fail for 4 years. Why did you guys just stop doing the podcast?
We just stopped. It's funny because one of the things that I'm really happy about, which is a little bit unexpected and I think unconventional, is that we did talk pretty extensively about when we were going to stop it. We knew about 2 months in advance that we were going to end it. We had a discussion. We chose the date that was like 4 years from when we started so that it was momentous and allowed for a nice closing of the chapter. So it was very intentional, which is nice because I think a lot of times you can just fall off. At the same time, the counter of just falling off is you can also just consistently post forever. And I think something that my sister and I realized is we had grown a lot from creating the podcast. We talked a lot about things like personal development, personal finance, our spiritual growth. We talked about sabbaticals, which is something that a lot of people were asking me about, my time off work. And we just had a beautiful impact on the people who were listening to the podcast, which included people in our community, people who would follow our newsletter, people who just randomly found us somehow. Like, that was all really exciting. And then after that, we just didn't have anything else to say. For us, I think it was important to end when we were done. And I think sometimes when you're creating stuff and sharing it online and you have a nice train going, you feel like you should go forever. And I'm glad that we sort of had this conversation initiated by my sister because she's a little bit more forward thinking than I am. And that we were able to just kind of reflect, be happy with what we did, and feel like we said what we needed to say.
That's so rare, I feel like, because Steph Smith said this when she came on the show, where it's like when you start creating something, a business or certainly content, you make this internal promise to yourself that, yeah, okay, and then I'm just going to do this until I die or until I give up, which means I suck. Like there's just you're just committing to this thing. And for someone who is feeling done, I guess my question is, how do you know that you're done? What are the check boxes, or at least what were your check boxes that you discussed with your sister that confirmed, yeah, I think we're done. We're done here.
I think it was a few things for us. One, a big thing we had talked about when we started our podcast was, okay, we wanted to be able to share information with people that we knew or people who would resonate with our message that was essentially, hey, here's a few things you can do to get your finances in order and start to build a life in accordance with your values. And we realized pretty early on that focusing on impact was really meaningful for us. And so over 4 years, we realized that we were having an impact. I had so many friends and family members reach out and say, hey, I've started investing. I have some questions. I started budgeting. I have taken time off work. I was at my cousin's wedding last year, and I have like 1,000 cousins. But I was at my cousin's wedding last year, and so many of my like direct relatives were on a sabbatical. And I thought it was so funny. And it's funny the way they say it. They're like, I'm actually on a sabbatical now too. And it's
I love
so
this.
nice.
I love this idea of Michelle Varghese just destroying the economy, just inspiring everybody to stop working.
Yes, I really felt like that. Like, I'm like, wow, I'm sure Our ancestors are so proud right now that they worked so hard. They came to this country. They gave us all the opportunities. And now we can all take time off work. That's
Lovely.
my legacy. Joking aside, I am proud of that. And so it was cool to see like what a direct impact something we created had. And even though in theory you could continue doing that, we had no new information to share. So we could keep recycling the same ideas, and we were doing that for a little bit, which when you're creating things online, it is good to assume that people don't go back and listen to your old stuff. But there's a certain point where we weren't getting anything out of it again. When we started, were learning a lot through the process. It was reiterating the things that were important to us. We were reading really interesting books and growing in our own development. And I think what we realized was it started to shift away from, oh, this is helping us grow and helping us continue to leave impact versus, okay, we're not really growing. And quite frankly, we have 4 years worth of podcast episodes. So if somebody wants to go and listen, they have enough. They can start today and call us in 2028 and let us know if it's affected them. We had our own things we wanted to do, and we didn't really feel like we were getting anything new out of the experience.
Yeah, it makes total sense, and a humble and respectable thing to do, because you are creating for other people. You want to bring other people value, share lessons, insights, knowledge, wisdom that you guys have, and spread it, crash the economy, make everybody unemployed. But then, yeah, if it's not fun for you and you guys aren't getting anything out of it, I mean, yeah, that just sounds completely unsustainable. Hence stopping. And so now to present day, then I guess I'm curious as to how much of your creator identity, so to speak, was tied to this podcast. Like if we look at your creator portfolio, if we now remove what seemed to be a pretty hefty chunk of it, i.e. the podcast, what is left with your creator identity, and maybe any emotions, if at all, are involved there?
Yeah, I'll answer the identity question from 2 frames. The first one being that the one thing that the podcast really gave me was pride in the fact that there was something that I was doing and showing up every single week to have a conversation with my sister, edit the podcast, post. That consistency, anyone who's been creating online and has been showing up consistently, that is exactly what they talk about in books like Atomic Habit when they say that's what builds your identity. Like, I don't think I was a podcaster because I just had a podcast. Felt like I was a podcaster because I was showing up every single week, and every week for 4 years was constantly reiterating to myself, I am podcasting, I am podcasting, I am podcasting. I am putting things out there. I'm having these conversations. I'm growing as an individual. So there was definitely fear associated with the idea that once this ends, what if I don't have something else to pick up with it? Even if I have other projects, I was afraid that I would lose a little bit of value because I wasn't posting consistently. Of course, the funny thing is, it's not like anybody really cares about that other than me, but it was something that was important to me. So I think identity from one aspect was just the habit reinforced the identity that I was doing the thing I wanted to do, which was create and put useful information out there online. The second part of the identity thing is looking at my portfolio, as you alluded to, of the different things that I am working on. So podcasting, Build a Wealthy Spirit was the first project I had, and it really taught me the value of showing up consistently. It also showed me the value of marketing and telling people that you have a podcast, because anyone who has a podcast knows it has the worst optimization search wise. It's not like YouTube. It's not like writing. It's like impossible for people to find your podcast. You could literally put all this time and energy in creating a podcast and nobody could find it. And so I'm somebody who was really shy and scared about sharing our podcast episode when we first launched. I wanted to be perfect. I wanted to keep tweaking. I wanted to wait a couple episodes. And I'm so lucky I have my sister, because she's just like full steam ahead. And so she was texting our friends. She was letting people know. And so I learned working with her and starting this podcast that promotion was really, really important. I say all of that because I started writing online, I believe about 2 years after we started our podcast. And writing was always something that I was interested in as well. And so once I started writing online, I really made sure like I hit the ground running when it came to sharing my work, connecting with people in the writing community that I was in. I started tweeting. And the crazy thing is that very quickly the writing overtook the popularity of the podcast. My Twitter followers overtook the popularity of the podcast. So even though the podcast is going and it's my biggest body of work, I do feel like I can now focus a little bit more on writing and building my personal businesses based off of the things that I learned from podcasting. So in that sense, it's good to actually just get that time back and refocus it.
What are the top 3 takeaways or skills or habits that you're taking from doing that podcast that you can now implement in your businesses and writing?
Yes. 1, consistency. And I will add a little asterisk to that because podcasting really showed me how important this is. I used to joke that if 10 people listened to our podcast, 1,000 people were impressed that we had a podcast. And so there were numerous times where we were afforded opportunities because someone was able to introduce us or we were able to meet somebody. I'll give a specific example. We were so fortunate we got to work with 2 podcast mentors who have much bigger audiences than us in the personal finance space. And that originally started because we drove 3 hours in the desert to go to Joe Saul-Seai's book signing. And when we were there, I said, oh, hey, we have a podcast too. And he was so generous. He's like, yeah, why don't you email me? And I'm happy to take a look and give you some feedback. So then I emailed him. I sent him the podcast. And he specifically commented, wow, you guys have 70 episodes. I thought you just had like 5 episodes. Because so many people start podcasts and stop them. So one thing led to another. It ended up leading to him mentoring us for a year, which was like such an amazing opportunity. And a big reason that happened was just because we kept showing up. So consistency, such a big, big takeaway, because you will go on for a really long time without knowing what's going to happen. And then suddenly you'll be connected to the right person. You'll have something go viral. You will have something where more opportunities are unlocked and people can then go and look at you and you're not like a one-hit wonder. You've actually been doing this and that just gives you a lot of credibility. 2, you have to tell people. Marketing is so important. If you're out there and you're creating and you are not telling people constantly that this is the thing that you're doing, you're not doing enough. My background is in software sales. I am so happy I had that opportunity because it taught me to be annoying. And I think it's so important because I have so many friends now in the creator space and they will tell me like, oh, I'm launching this course. And I'm like, that's so exciting. Like, tell me about it so I can tweet about it and share. Like, where did you put it? Like, where can I share it? And they're like, oh, I haven't told anyone about it yet. I'm like, wait, what?
I said that to you 3 weeks ago. You bullied me into tweeting about a new offer I had. And I finally did it. It worked.
That is exactly what I'm good for. Is just like bullying people into sharing the projects that they're working on. So yeah, number 2 is the marketing and telling people. And then 3, I would say trying to have some sort of system in place so that you can actually make it easy to show up every week. Eventually, my sister and I had a template for our podcast. We put time on the calendar. The more we were able to tighten that over time, I think is what allowed us to keep going. And so trying to recreate that the best I can for my writing and coaching business and future projects as well.
Love these. Consistency, marketing, and the third one. You forgot it too. It's the last one you just said.
Oh, putting a system in place.
Systems, yes. Oh my God.
That's good. I'm glad it was so memorable that neither of us could remember what it was.
Yes, I said, wow, I love all 3 of those. Clearly.
1 and 2
okay.
were great.
Yeah. 2 of them I clearly liked more than the third. So consistency. Yeah, I really love this. We see in Grindstone, do 100 more. do 50 more. If you do whatever your thing is, if it's posting a video, I mean, you mentioned sales, if it's sales calls, just like so many solutions to the problems you have right now will be found on the other side of just doing 100 more of whatever the thing is. And
Yes.
you make yourself more lucky. Like you kind of just widen this net of opportunities and chances for people to hear you and share your thing, and just doing more on a consistent time frame. I really love that. The second is one that I'm still working on, which is tell people about your stuff. And I can just share from my perspective. I think the hesitancy is like, well, but my stuff's not good. My stuff's not good enough yet to be worthy. But there's just this like chicken and the egg thing of, well, once my stuff's really, really good and big and popular and well known, then I can tell everybody about it, which is just sort of backwards. And I shared this story. I just recorded a podcast with Cup of Joe 5 yesterday, but do you know the story about Henry Ford getting annoyed by his own ad campaign?
I do not, even though I'm a Detroit gal, so I do love a good Henry Ford anecdote.
Well, he was walking around the factory, the office, and he just saw this ad campaign that Ford was running, and he just saw it everywhere, on every single wall, outside the building, inside the building, getting letters about it for like 6 months, 7 months. And finally, he goes to his marketing director's office. He's just like, "Hey, when are we going to stop running this ad campaign?" And his director's like, "We haven't started running it yet."
What?
They were still tweaking it and working it. And the takeaway there is, you get so violently sick of your own stuff and talking about your own stuff and looking at your own stuff. You get so sick of it way before anyone even knows that it exists.
Yeah.
So tell people about your stuff. No one knows you exist. And if you tell them today, they'll forget about you tomorrow. So tell them again. And this is advice that, again, I wanted to do a little experiment with my one-on-one coaching 3 weeks ago. And you were just like, all right, well, tweet about it. And I was like, well, I don't know, Michelle. I just maybe in a few years I could tweet about it and tell people. And then I tweeted it. You retweeted it. So I'm pretty sure I got a new client from you retweeting it. So,
well, it's so funny because one of those things that's so much easier to just tell other people to do than implement yourself. Mm-hmm. Like even when I was starting my writing coaching, I was so surprised at how much friction I felt. I also wanted to write the perfect copy and write the perfect tweet and figure out all the best angles and times. And finally, I just got so frustrated with myself because I kept putting it off. And the crazy thing is that you can't make money if people don't know what they can buy from you. So I was like, I just have to tweet anything. I don't even care what time it is. Just put the link down and write something. And nobody responded at first. So it feels very self-affirming at that moment that you should never have started. But I think rule of thumb when I was in sales, with the people need to see things like 7 or 8 times before they even purchase or register it. So I try to keep that in mind. And after a few tweets and sharing it on Substack notes and putting it out there and friends sharing it, all of a sudden, bad news, it worked. I have clients.
Bummer. Sorry.
It sucks to know that marketing and telling people what you have going on works. But once you get that first person though, all of a sudden you feel better. I feel like somebody signs up and you're like, okay, I'm not like crazy. This might actually work. Mm-hmm. And on the flip side, if nobody signs up, that's also saying no. Like you're like, okay, I tried, and no, this is a terrible idea. Let me shift and see where I can make changes.
Or it's some sort of feedback.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the better you get and the more experiments you run, the better you are at analyzing feedback or analyzing lack of results. And so maybe it's not a bad idea. Maybe it was targeted to the wrong audiences, or maybe it's just the offer is not, it's not obvious what the offer is or how valuable the offer actually is. Maybe it feels too risky. Maybe you have no credibility. It could be any one of these things.
Maybe you're not excited about it. That happened to me. I was running a second cohort of my sabbatical cohort. And the first one we did, turn your layoff into a sabbatical, was such a felt like such a big hit. Me and my partner Toby got like 10 or 11 students. We had such a really meaningful experience. They were also interesting and they were doing cool things like starting their own think tanks and traveling the world and deciding that they wanted to. One woman went and like just volunteered to marry people at City Hall because she just like loves love. And we were
Whoa.
like, this is so cool and fulfilling. And then we tried again maybe like 6 months later, and we weren't getting the same level of interest. But at the same time, I don't think, speaking for myself, I also had the same level of interest in talking about sabbaticals anymore. Like, I just could not get myself to write the marketing copy. It just felt like such a drag, even when I did it. And I think that was signal to me that actually there was a bigger problem, which was that it was time for me to sort of move out of the thing that I had become known for.
Yeah. And I want to talk to you about that in this conversation, but to just close the loop on the 3 takeaways that you had, the last one you shared was systems. And you said that you and your sister templatized the podcast, making it easier to show up and just sort of almost follow the checklist. And I'm curious as to how can creators make it easier for themselves to just show up and not take it day by day or week by week, which is what most creators do. It's just like, oh my God, I got to get another video out this week. What's the idea? Okay, then I got to script it. How do you suggest people make things easier for themselves to put things on repeat?
I will say this is something that's like really hard for me, and I'm glad that my sister is a lot more systems oriented. But I do like the idea of taking a look at the things that you do and see if there are things that you're doing frequently, the same things, but you're then still forcing yourself to make decisions every single time. So, an example of that could be every week I show up and I think to myself, what day should I record? What topics are going to be interesting to my audience? What should the outline be? Each of those things, you can actually remove a decision in that process. Record every Thursday at noon. Make it so that you have a loose format for your template. Start with my intro, then I introduce the authority figure to my piece, then we banter back and forth on 3 main points, then we conclude. Nobody else will notice your format, but having that for yourself will be helpful. Or once again, like ideas. Okay, we knew after a while that these were 4 major topics that we were always going to pull on, and we just had a list of different ideas we had around those topics, so we could just pull that up instead of trying to constantly think of something new. So find where those friction points are with decision making, where you're essentially making the same decision every week, and try to eliminate those. Because I think when it comes to being creative, the more thought and effort you have to put into actually just getting started is only going to take away from your creative energy.
What was your template?
Our template was exactly what I just said.
Oh, okay.
Which was no, like the one, my example was actually just our template, okay. Which was like intro, like 30,000 foot view of the episode, maybe like a specific story that might be relevant if possible. Then we would do our ad break. Then we would sort of introduce potentially like an article or something that was relevant, maybe research driven, just specific to the topic that we were talking about, maybe a book or a chapter. And then we would usually have 2 or 3 ideas that we knew we wanted to jam on. We would do takeaways, and then we would do like a little community section where we could chat about what's just going on for anyone who was interested. So that was a format that I think for like probably the last 2 years we pretty quote unquote strictly stuck to. And again, nobody else really can notice it, but it's nice because it just gives you something to work with. We still had enough to like improv with each other, but it wasn't like we just had like long conversations before about what it should look like and all of that. And it was just so much easier to be like, boom, 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 like, let's fill out this template and then we're good to go.
Yeah, I would imagine that the whole point is so that people don't notice the template. The point is that it's a well-constructed, flowing thing where the listener is just immersed and lost in whatever the thing is. Of course, maybe you pick up on patterns, but yeah, I think the whole goal is for it to just be this seamless thing to sit back and enjoy.
Yeah, exactly. And I hope for anyone who consistently listened to our podcast, maybe the template was kind of nice. Maybe it was nice to know that we would do takeaways after we went through the whole topic. So they didn't have to worry about trying to remember everything. They could just get the highlights at the end. Or some people might want to skip to the end to go to our community time because they just want to hear us banter. So it also gives people, I think, a framework that if they do follow you, they can just go and find the things that they like the most.
It's funny because one of my favorite podcasters, Chris Williamson, he runs the Modern Wisdom podcast.
Yeah.
And over the last couple of months, he stopped doing his intros where he introduces the guest because he just started to upload on Spotify his videos. Like it's just the exact same as his YouTube videos of these podcasts. In the YouTube videos,
Right.
there is no intro. But now I just go and I listen to an episode and it just gets right into it. I'm like, Chris, where's my intro? Who is this person?
Yeah.
How am I supposed to know who this is and what you think about this person and why you liked this conversation? What's going on? So a latest example of I was used to his format and he just switched it up on us.
Right? Yeah. See, like you probably didn't even know that you were cognizant that there was a format, but as soon as it was gone, you're like, oh, I'm like a baby without my cage. I don't know anything. My cage, my crib. I'm like a baby without my crib.
Your cage. Do you know what babies do, Michelle? Yeah. So where do you keep? Which cage do you keep your baby?
Where should I put your baby? In the baby cage?
You brought up a few minutes ago, moving on from being the quote sabbatical girl. Mm-hmm. And I think that ties into what we were talking about earlier around creator identity. We can say niche or niche, whatever the hell. In Princeton, we call it ecosystem. But basically, like, what is your thing? What do you talk about? What can we expect? Why do people follow you? What are they expecting to learn about from you or hear about from you? And you shared, or at least as I heard it, you talked a lot about sabbaticals, and a lot of your notoriety came from that space, and it's what you helped a lot of people do, not just in your content, but in courses and cohorts that people would join. What happens when you want to step away from this thing that you were known for so long, and how has that been going for you?
Hopefully other people can relate to this in some manner or another. And I feel like they probably can, because niche or niche or whatever you want to call it is almost like a bad word in the creator world, because it's like, I have to stick to one topic. And I think there is so much value to that. The good news is, again, like if you share consistently and you're still trying to figure that out, I don't think you have to put too much pressure on yourself to find that. I just wrote about how I lost my job. Then I wrote about how I thought people could think about a sabbatical, especially like a self-funded one like my own. And then people just kept asking me about it. I kept having phone calls, and that inspired new essays and new ideas. And it was really cool to meet people who were thinking about work differently the way I was. And so I really enjoyed it for a really long time. But then I started freelancing. I was doing community management. I was doing a lot of work that I enjoyed, and was feeling less and less like I was on a sabbatical and enjoying a new chapter of my life. So I started to feel less excited about talking about the topic. And at the same time, so many people had reached out to me about sabbaticals, a lot of sabbaties out there, as I call them. And they were sharing their own experiences and coaching and cool things that they were launching. I felt like in this like corner of the world, like the sabbatical world, I feel like I know everybody. And I'm excited for them. Like, I feel like the torch has been passed and they're excited to talk about it. And I almost in some ways can forget that part of myself. So I think there were just other things that were more interesting to me, things that made me want to just shift out of the sabbatical ecosystem. But it's also hard because I didn't necessarily know what was next. It's not like I got to just flip to the next thing. I think I have to go through the same process of just sharing work, talking to people, seeing what's interesting, and hoping something comes out of that. So in some ways, it's very scary to walk away from. And who knows? I mean, unfortunately, there's a lot more layoffs and things that are going on right now. So I texted my business partner, as like a joke, and was like, should we like restart? And we were both like, no. But I, for better or for worse, I think that world is still so relevant to so many people. And maybe I'll still talk about those experiences, but yeah, I'm just ready for the next thing. Again, actually, it's very similar to the thing about the podcast, which is I just feel like I've said what I need to say about it. I don't have too much new stuff. I'm 2 years out at this point. I lost my job because of COVID, so it's not even the same anymore. We don't even think about those things. So yeah, I think it's been an interesting journey to make that choice, see how I just felt very shackled to it in some ways, and then start to move out of it. But once again, too, who knows if anybody else even cares? But it felt like a very big decision for me.
Now you've broken through the shackle like a baby breaking out of a cage.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's a fascinating conversation because in the creator space, this buzzword niche, there just is this unfortunate reality of when someone subscribes. I think YouTube's a great example, probably the biggest example, where the algorithm of YouTube, it likes to put you in a box for better and for worse.
Yeah.
And that means that when someone clicks subscribe, it is because they got a specific piece of value from this creator, and they go, cool, I'm going to subscribe because I anticipate I'm going to continue getting that same value from this person. And so when that person no longer provides that value that they did in the past that this person subscribed for, well, now I feel bamboozled. Why did I subscribe? And now you're making different stuff, and no, I'm not interested, so I'm not going to watch it. I think it's more exponentiated on YouTube because you can literally have people. You can see people who switch their niche, and regardless of how many subscribers they have, now they could have like 100,000 subscribers, and their latest videos have like 100 views. It's like, what happened here? It's like, well, you click on the popular tab on their videos, and you see, well, their popular videos that brought in most of their subscribers have nothing to do with what they're making videos about now.
Yeah.
And I bet it's a totally different metric system, and the visuals are different completely on, say, Twitter, perhaps closer on something like Substack, or maybe people aren't opening the emails if they don't feel them as relevant. But anyway, I guess with that unfortunate reality of like people followed for specific reasons. Of course, the goal is that they feel deeply connected to you, a person, the human being behind it. But yeah, I guess, like, can you take me through one, I guess, your response to hearing that, and to how you are thinking about this in this transitionary period for yourself?
Everything you're saying is definitely true, especially amplified on YouTube. But in general, also just exactly like you said, amplified by the algorithm. The algorithm, I think, works to really think about how they're going to slot you into every single person's For You page or YouTube Shorts, Reels, or suggestions. And they're the ones that are making the decision, like, oh, these people want to hear about this topic. And so, on one hand, I think that's extremely valid. On the other hand, depending on why you're doing the thing you're doing, it's also important to keep in mind that for me, like, happiness and time freedom and all of those things are so important to me. And so, if I'm not excited about a topic anymore, I'm also not going to be as excited as creating the work that goes behind it. And I think it'll be worse quality as well. But unfortunately, it does mean that I am stepping away from probably at least a certain group of people who are following me because they're interested in reading more about sabbaticals. Or probably the bigger thing is that there's always the option, like, people are multifaceted. Just because someone's following me about sabbaticals doesn't mean they don't enjoy reading about my writing coaching or about my life as an Indian American woman. But there are going to be some people who also have multiple interests, but those multiple interests don't overlap with my multiple interests. Our Venn diagram was sabbaticals, and they will be out. I think you just have to take the L. Like, if you want to make a switch, I think do it. And I think what you actually see if you look at long-term creators is that they do this multiple times over their career. Like if you think about Tim Ferriss, he was the 4-hour work week guy for so long. And he still is to some extent and to some people. But also I think of him as like the podcast guy. Like he's the guy who really took podcasting to the next level. And I'm sure other people think of him as like somebody who's just really great at interviewing like celebrities and interesting, exceptional folks. A lot of people go through these shifts. And I think it's good to be intentional about it versus being really reliant on the algorithm. I think also, my opinion, especially as I'm talking to people and starting to really consider the implications of AI, I do think it'll be a lot of AI generated content, creators, videos, podcasts that are just purely artificial intelligence. And I think, or AI driven basically. And what I imagine and what I'm betting on to some extent is I actually think personality and your personal brand, like you being the niche, is more and more important. Because now if I want to look up a video on how to change my tire, probably in a year, I mean, today I could just ask ChatGPT, right? I don't even have to read like somebody else's article about it. Will just tell me. But I'm sure in a year they'll just create the video for me. They could probably be like, okay, let's combine a bunch of videos and show somebody changing a tire. So it's going to be less about what the information is, and I think it's going to be a lot more about who is giving you the information and whether or not you like that person and whether or not you buy into that person. And I think that's just going to be more and more relevant when things like followers, for example, seem less and less important in the algorithmic world. And I also think we're going to be working against AI personality types. And I think it's going to be a lot more about the personality than it is going to be about the topic.
That's a fascinating point. I heard someone recently in the creator space say that the two things that are going to be huge, like very trending moving forward as AI and technology will continue to advance, are vulnerability, something that AI just simply can't do. Vulnerability being opening up about some human part of yourself that other humans hear and relate to and feel deeply connected to. And in-person events.
Yes. Yeah.
You know,
I just
this is
hosted
great.
an event on Sunday, and it's like what a difference it makes to be able to just talk one-on-one with people and have like deep conversations. And it's completely whatever, it's real.
Yeah.
Real intelligence.
Yeah, it's night and day. My birthday was this weekend,
Oh
and
my gosh, Dylan, happy birthday. I can't believe, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't know that. I'm so upset.
how are you supposed to know?
I'm pretty sure you told me because, now that you're saying it, I think I knew you were a Pisces.
Oh, I see. I see. Yeah. Well, I didn't take your advice, and I didn't market my birthday on Twitter the day of,
Oh.
unfortunately. But
Birthdays,
for
hey everybody, birthdays are a great time to create content.
yeah, I should have milked it for what it's worth. But I had a big old celebration, mostly because I wasn't in the country for my 30th birthday, and this past weekend was my 31st. So it was two birthdays in one, making up for last time. And my business partner, Colby, who runs Grindstone with me, he flew in to see me and spend the
What?
weekend. And we've been business partners for like a year and a half, but we've been friends for like 4 years. We met in an online coach training and certification program. And so
Wow.
this was our first time meeting each other in person.
Isn't
And
that wild?
you get this weird experience where one, you get to see how tall somebody actually is,
Yes.
and two, you get to see what the side of their head actually looks like,
Yeah.
I think.
That's so true.
And we had a wonderful time. The
Mm.
weekend was amazing for many reasons, but we just connected 15 times better just
Yeah.
hanging out in person and eating a real meal together and going for drives and playing pickleball. And like, he left, I drove him back to the airport on Monday, and then we had our bi-weekly business meeting
Mm.
on Tuesday. And it just, they always go very well, but this one just went, it was just on another level. And I
Yeah.
think, I hear a lot of my friends are working remotely, and when they go to some offsite or some sort of
Mm.
in-person work thing. I have so many stories where they're dreading it. They're like, oh, I gotta go to this. They go, lo and behold, it's amazing. They feel connected to their
Aw.
team. There's just something that happens that, I'm so glad that we have technology that we're using right now to have this conversation. But
Yeah.
like, if we were in person recording this same podcast, we just can't even really articulate the added nuances and benefits that come from just being able to see someone's real face, being able to react to them in real time. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm a lot funnier in person, I've been told also.
I can't imagine that to be true, Dylan. You're already
Yeah,
so
it's not true.
funny.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't get better than this, actually, unfortunately.
You actually pre-wrote all my jokes on a piece of paper, so that would be obvious if we were just sitting at
Ha
a
ha
dining
ha.
table together.
It just says pause for laughter.
Yeah.
Anyway, side quest
Yeah.
here, but in person, much better.
Yeah, I totally agree. And to be honest, I think that's been part of my own pivot as well, is how much I enjoy being with people IRL. Like I was living in a small town before this, and sort of just had isolated myself. So living in a proper city again and being able to meet people again, it's hard because I love my online friends. I'm lucky I've met a good handful in person, but there's just always something missing that, like, when you finally get to meet IRL, like just like you said, it's like those magical, like, mundane moments, or the ability to talk over each other without having to,
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know, in Zoom, that's so weird. We would never hear the person. You can't get excited at the same level. Like,
You
there's just
start
so many
talking over
things.
them, and then you have to just kind of, I've learned that you have to really just go for it. You can't just
Yeah.
start interrupting and then, oh wait, but you have to just go for it, because it's going to be a pause, and they're still going to talk for another second or two, and just like I
Yeah.
did, I just stomped on all over your sentence.
No, I
But
thought that was the example we were showing everybody.
yeah.
No, it's exactly that. So yeah, IRL, I agree. And so yeah, so if you're thinking about your creator business, whatever it is, whether or not you're planning to switch your ecosystem or your niche anytime soon, I think it is really important to constantly remember, like, how can I infuse the personal in this? How can I make this an experience that we're having together? Little things, right? Like when I talk about sabbaticals, it's a joke, but it caught on that I would call people like sabbaties. And like people say that to me still. They're like, I'm joining the sabbati club, right? And like nobody's, saying that to the next guy who's talking about sabbaticals. Like it's something that we have. And those little like inside moments and jokes that you have like with your audience will still be there when you switch and you start to, let's say, pivot out of your niche or like just grow into something like a new direction.
On this topic of ecosystem,
Mm-hmm.
you're changing your ecosystem around. And I'm wondering if I can ask you a question that I ask our creators who join Grindstone in their first week. We have a launch call and we go through their ecosystem, or at least the first draft or reclarified version of their ecosystem. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so in your ecosystem, Michelle, if we think about it in terms of three things vaguely that we start with topic, vibe, and connection.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are the topics that live within Michelle Varghese's ecosystem, and then what are the vibes or energy or person, like the emotions or to be expected, and then connection. Like, what do we know about you? You're as a human. Like, how open are you? What do we know about your personal life, etc. And I'm sure we'll
Mm.
add to this over time, but as of right now, this is our three point draft of what an ecosystem is. And so I'd be curious to take you, or for you to take me through what you think those three are for you as of right now.
Yeah. So topic, vibe, connection. Okay. I am going to answer in reverse, if that's okay. Connection,
Mm-hmm.
vibe, and topic. So for me, connection has been really important for my own personal brand, if you will, completely by accident. And just because that's the type of person I am, my audience feels, I think, very connected to me. I try to be vulnerable. I struggle with it, but I am vulnerable. I try to share my hard lessons, my tough experiences, like losing my job, going sober, those type of things, because I know that vulnerability begets vulnerability and it allows people to not only put themselves in my shoes, but more importantly, be able to say, oh, wow, like I actually experienced that as well. And to sort of maybe make it things a little bit less lonely in those sense. And I think that's actually what helps me find my ecosystem and my topics, because it's when people feel comfortable leaving a comment about their own experience or shooting you an email or asking to speak one-on-one, that's when I start to learn, oh, this is a common problem coming up. Great example of how this works is a lot of people who follow me are also, like me, first or second generation immigrants, a lot of times like Asian, maybe Indian specifically, but of course a lot of people in my audience looks like me. And so when I took a sabbatical, a lot of people would talk to me and say, oh, well, what do your parents think? Like that was like a major concern. And that's something that I totally related to, and I understood why they were asking me that, even though, today I'm 34. I'm totally financially independent of my parents. They have not made a decision for me in a very long time. But culturally, it's true. My parents do have an opinion. And a lot of times, immigrant parents are very involved in your life, whether or not you want them to be. And so that actually inspired an essay I wrote because I was asked so much about it. And so I think that was like that layer, that personal connection that I could bring with people, because they knew like, okay, this is who you are. I'm not an AI bot. I'm not just another random person that looks like every other person. I'm bringing my own personal self to this. I'm sharing my stories. And I think that makes people feel comfortable asking me questions. So that's how I'd answer the thoughts around connection. For vibe, I think it's pretty easy. If you know me, it's positive, optimistic, just I am like super encouraging, and a lot
I'm not getting any of that.
Feels just negative, sad, depressing.
Yeah. Says the guy in this very dark cave, whatever's going on back
No,
here.
I'm glad that we organized it so that you were super dark and ominous and I was like bright and shining, just so we could help drive. That's the cinematography that went behind this podcast. Just so you guys know, this is a high quality, well thought out show.
I'm sure that it would benefit me to put way more effort into whatever this looks like, but I gotta say, this is where I work, and I like to work in a dark room with no windows, with my one little light right here, so that I have nothing to look at other than my screen. It helps me lock in.
That's so funny. I mean, I actually don't dislike the vibe. It's just funny because it's so different than your personality. But it is.
Really?
I think you're a very happy, like positive person. So it's funny that you're just kind of like this in this like dark, ominous room. But I like the film noir vibe that you're going for.
Then I will change my vibe as you discuss your vibe to match the background.
Become more somber.
Please continue, Michelle.
Yes. So for me, my vibe is definitely positive, supportive. A lot of people just talk to me because I think they want somebody in their life who will tell them to go for it. And that's just me. I'm extremely positive and optimistic, especially for other people. And I'm really proud of that, because I think when I first started with that energy, like say 2 years ago, when I was really starting to be more active online and on Twitter and building a community, like people would ask me like, oh, should I quit my job or should I not take on a full-time job and instead focus on my YouTube channel? And I was like, yeah, you for sure should. I mean, I would try to get like luckily I talk about personal finance a lot, so I was like, can you afford it? But outside of that, I would be like, yeah, you should go for it. Like, don't go back to the stupid corporate world. Like, you have a vision. And it's actually surprising how many people will write back to me like 2 years later and be like, hey, I actually am so happy that I stuck with this. Like, I had my first viral video. I, was able to get somebody to publish my book. And I'm like, oh, wow, I totally forgot that we spoke. So happy you listened to me. But yeah, it's really great to see that sort of pay off, because I think my own parents are very positive and optimistic. But I think in this space, sometimes you don't always have that. And it's so hard and it's so lonely. And so I do want people to know that they can come and follow the work that I'm doing, and like we'll have fun, we'll be positive, we'll be vulnerable, we'll share the hard things, but the vibe is high. It's a high vibration. Like that's just where I am, and I want anyone who's not at that level to vibe out for sure. And then topic wise is that, what's interesting is topic wise is that's the only thing that's changing. right? Like the vibe is staying the same, the connection is staying the same. I'm just sort of going to figure out what that next thing is for me. At the moment, it's just talking and sharing a little bit more about like writing coaching. But honestly, I'm going to go back into beginner mode and just write about topics that are interesting to me. I always say, you know, we're not that creative. We only have like so many things we're interested in. Everyone's always like, I have like 100 interests. How can I choose a niche? I'm like, you have like 3. We're fine. I promise you don't love that many things. And so I'm sure things will, like my thoughts on work, my thoughts on creativity, my thoughts on sabbaticals, like those things will come up again. But I'm just going to trust the process and let myself just be free from the niche, be nicheless for a little bit. And I think hopefully people will respond and I'll start to get a sense of what that next thing is for me.
Well, I love all of that. Thank you for sharing. And as far as the next thing, you've brought it up several times, you are doing writing coaching right now. And
Yes.
I think that'd be a lovely place to take us home. Whoa, you okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, I've been drinking this LaCroix for the last hour, and every time I've done this 3 times now, I will start drinking it, and I'm like, why am I drinking LaCroix? I have to like mute my mic while you're talking and take several breaks, and just burping
Yes.
like crazy.
Yeah, bubbly drinks, amateur stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Could you tell me your question again?
I have to remember my question, which is around your writing coaching now. And just tell us about it. How did you launch it? What are you actually doing? What's the service? And what's your plan for it moving forward?
I'm really excited about writing coaching. It was a small gamble, a small bet, as they say. And I have been pleased. I've been doing it for about since the beginning of the year. So it came about because it feels obvious now, but for the last couple of years, I had been mentoring. I've been an editor for David Perel's Rite of Passage. And so I've been working a lot with students, just been tackling the different parts of getting started writing online and doing specifically things like nonfiction essays. And when Rite of Passage ended, I thought I was going to be done with that and move on. I don't know why. I didn't have a lack of interest in doing something else, but it just didn't occur to me that I don't know, it just wasn't there. Luckily, somebody else that I had edited their pieces during the last cohort actually set up a meeting with me and asked if I'd be open to doing writing coaching. And specifically, like I like to really focus on being able to like refine your craft and be able to publish and grow your audience. And so while it's difficult, obviously, to like promise anybody anything when it comes to growing your audience, I do think that sometimes especially the writing world, I would say specifically, there can sometimes be this like glamorization of not sharing your writing. And I think it's a defense mechanism, but you hear a lot of people saying things like, oh, I don't care if anyone reads it. I'll just write it. I just want to share this. I just want to write. But of course, it's so hard to keep going if no one is reading your writing. So I wanted to make sure that I was able to, one, help provide with anyone who worked with me, somebody reading their writing. Like I will read your essays and I will give you feedback and I will encourage you on this journey. And I wanted to be able to like gently push people who are interested in actually growing their audience as well, because it's so satisfying when people are actually engaging with your work and reading your work and listening to your podcast or whatever it is. So focusing on the writing coaching aspect, that has been really, really valuable. I try to make it really easy for myself because I am a perfectionist and I can overthink things. I just created a landing page. I didn't really think too much about the cuts that Gumroad was going to take. I didn't try to think about whether or not there was a better platform or a good way to write things. I just wanted to make it as easy up front. I had an idea of how I wanted to set it up. I'd been working with Rite of Passage, so I had a sense of how these things should be formatted. And then I was just decided to see if anyone else would be interested in working with me. And I have a nice little crew of people that I'm working with. It's been super exciting and rewarding. I've learned a lot. I'm getting excited about writing again myself. And I've seen them have their own like big wins, which has been really, really exciting. So that's been my latest chapter in terms of my unconventional life path.
Who's your avatar?
Right now, it is people who are writing and publishing nonfiction essays online and looking to grow their audience.
Cool. So
Mm-hmm.
people with newsletters, people with blogs who are writing
Mm-hmm.
nonfiction, long form.
Yeah. You don't have to be writing consistently at the moment. It's helpful if you have written, just because 0 to 1 can sometimes be difficult, but then also 1 to 50 essays is difficult. But yeah, people who are sort of focused on those things. That's my expertise. Sometimes I'll look at like poetry or fiction for the people that I am working with, but my bread and butter is nonfiction writing.
Cool. Cool. Well,
Yeah.
I love it, and I am very excited to see where it goes and what you continue to do this year as you change the topics within your ecosystem. And I will link to your Twitter and the landing
Yes.
page for your writing coaching. But where else do you want people to go to check out more of what you got going on?
Yeah, those are the best places. MichelleElizabethVarghese.com is my website. Just has links to everything. But I'm pretty active on Twitter. I'm pretty active on Substack. I would say those are the best places to find me and reach out. And if you enjoy essays about sabbaticals, that's a lot of my former essays, but also I like to write funny pieces. I write about my experiences as an Indian American, manifestation, personal development. It's a good, fun mix of things. And we'll probably also be shifting a little bit into writing about some of the things that I'm learning working with my writing coaching people as well, because yeah, there's some interesting patterns coming up that I'm kind of want to have a little bit more of a dialogue as we sort of grow in this AI world.
Well, I can't wait to read them. I will be staying tuned and always love talking to you, Michelle. You're awesome. Thank you for this conversation and can't wait to have many more in the future.
Thank you, Dylan. It's been a total joy to be here. I'm so excited we were able to do this.
There it is.
Peace out.